Wake up, NHL fans. I hope you all had a wonderful weekend. It was a busy weekend around the league. And for Colby and I, alongside Colby Cohen, I'm Jonny Lazarus. This is Morning Cuppa Hockey presented by Betway. If you're going to place a bet, bet on Betway. Please play responsibly and remember that you must be 19 years of age or older. We got a lot to get into. The team of the weekend, the Washington Capitals. We'll talk about the Nashville Predators and their streak, the Colorado Avalanche with another multi-goal comeback, making Sunday a pretty crazy day for the Avs out there in Colorado, taking on the Pittsburgh Penguins. We'll get into the Eastern Conference playoff race again if the New York Islanders are finished, which, let's face it, they probably are. And then we'll finish off the show with a little bit of college hockey because Kobe's beautiful face was on the NCAA playoff tournament or NCAA tournament preview show last night with John Buccigross and Andrew Raycroft. So a lot to get into today on the show. But Kobe, how was your weekend? You look, I can't tell how you look right now.
I'm tired. It was a long weekend. We celebrated Sloane's first birthday, so we had the big party at for that. Since 1-year-olds, of course, they need to have massive birthday parties, right?
Was it themed?
It was themed.
Yeah. All these 1-year-old parties are themed parties now.
It was Bunny. It was some bunny is turning 1 because Miss Rachel and her Hop Little Bunny song. And anybody with young kids, I'm sure, is well aware of who Miss Rachel is. She's a free babysitter on YouTube for anyone who doesn't. So busy weekend. It was a lot. Actually, the best part was Colin Wilson and his wife, one of my former teammates, came down from New York City for the party, and our daughters are just days apart. And it was just so funny to see these two little 1-year-olds together, just like palling around, and it just, we were laughing. We were like, geez, they picked up right where we left off. He's one of my best friends and former roommates or whatever. So I see New York Ranger Marine, Hop Little Bunny, hop hop hop. That song is etched in my brain right now. So I'm laughing reading that in the chat. So, yep, that was busy. Last night I was up in Bristol, Connecticut for the NCAA selection show. We can talk a little bit about that a little bit later as we head into the NCAA tournament, which kicks off this week.
I actually want to thank NYR Marine. Well, first of all, a lot of people from the chat actually wished me a happy birthday over the weekend, which was very nice. But NYR Marine tweeted at me, happy birthday, Laz's mom. And I thought that was pretty funny. She got a kick of that too. So I did show her that tweet, NYR Marine. She appreciated that. Thank you.
Wait, because you guys have the same birthday?
Yeah, same birthday. Yeah.
Karen's famous.
Yeah, she is. She's a gem. That's for sure.
So yeah, it was busy weekend. But it's that time of year.
Best time of year. This is spring, right? Spring started. NCAA tournament's underway for basketball, and now this weekend for hockey. We're like 3 weeks away from the NBA, NHL, first 2 weeks of the playoffs. Like, that is for me the peak of the sports calendar when all that stuff is intertwining.
Yeah, no, I agree. You got Sundays, Saturdays, ABC, TNT. It is really good. And then this weekend, wall to wall on ESPNU, ESPN News, and ESPN2. There'll be college games, all day Thursday, all Friday, all day Saturday, all day Sunday. So we'll give you more details on that as we get through the week. But get your bets into the chat right now. We want to see what you guys like for the game tonight for our Betway bet of the day. So drop a couple in the chat, and then our producer Vic will monitor that, and he'll grab one and we'll use it as our bet of the day. So we want to hear from you, obviously, and we're going to talk about the Washington Capitals. I haven't seen Jeremiah in the chat. I feel like we're going to talk about the Washington Capitals, and Jeremiah is going to miss it. Although he'll listen to it later if he doesn't catch us live, but it certainly would be good to have him adding color into the chat when talking Washington Capitals.
And Jeremiah and I I don't want to say we were like going at it, but I was tweeting yesterday about how the Capitals make no sense. And I don't think that I'm wrong in saying that. When you look at this team, like on paper, with what they were at the start of the year to what they are now, I mean, their top two centers went from Nicholas Backstrom and Evgeny Kuznetsov to Dylan Strome and Connor McMichael. It's not like this team made a ton of improvements over the year to put themselves in the position that they're currently in right now to be fighting for that second wildcard spot, even the third spot in the Metro. Like the Capitals, it's not unfair to say they could end up in that third spot over Philadelphia. And
I mean, the way it's going right now, it looks like they will. I mean, they've got two games in hand, and they're 2 points behind. Although the Flyers continue to win big games. Yeah, they didn't have a good one against the Florida Panthers yesterday, but previous to that, they beat Toronto. They get a point off Carolina, and then they played Boston in a matinee game, which they never win in Boston. They won that game, so it's hard to count the Flyers out, when thinking about the Washington Capitals, Johnny, but you just can't. This coincides with the fact that Ovechkin is just on an absolute tear right now. Mm-hmm. I think we said about a week ago, 10 days ago on the show, he would definitely get 25, but he would probably get 30. I'm almost thinking that number is probably 32, 33 now, with the fact that he's up to 26 with 12 games to go.
Mm-hmm. Yesterday.
He's got to be good for 5 or 6 more in the next 12, the way he's playing, right?
Probably a couple empty netters too. I mean, he's had a couple of those, and they're not shy to throw him out there. But I mean, that was a beauty yesterday, and the Capitals in a big game too. This weekend they beat Carolina on home ice on Saturday in a crazy 7-6 shootout of the game. And then yesterday they come back and shut out the Winnipeg Jets on home ice. Ovechkin celebrates with his son in the front row right there after scoring that beauty. That was a really cool video to see. But also with this Capitals team too, they're beating good teams now. It's not like they're just beating up on the teams that are weaker in the division. Watch right here, Ovechkin goes right to his son in the first row on that celly. And Oshie obviously in this game was celebrating his 1,000th game accomplishment, which is a really cool ceremony before the game. But here's that little clip of Obi and his son.
Can we rewind that though a little bit and just admire the skate to stick in full stride? I mean, that is just incredible. When you see this in slow motion, it just looks a little bit mundane and like easy, but when you really understand just like how smooth that is and how hard that is to do, to go from skate to stick in full motion, especially when the puck's a little bit behind you. I mean, he's a freak.
And then the puck protection too, like using his left leg to separate himself from the defender.
I was laughing with Butchie last night because this isn't the angle. I mean, that's a good angle, but I'm pretty sure it's the next angle where you really can see it. But, Butchergross has been beating the drum. Yeah, here's a good angle. Skate, stick, uses the left leg to protect it, gets around the goalie. I mean, he's breaking this record. I mean, everybody that was shitting on him this year and saying he wasn't going to break the record, it was insane. Like I was like, there's no way he's not breaking the record. And
yeah,
I see Jeremiah like on Twitter, our guy the sports beard, like hammering people for not talking about the fact that he had to change his stick this year. And then someone on NHL Network,
I think it was EJ Raddick,
and he was like celebrating him like he was a war hero or something like that. I was laughing at you, Jeremiah. So whenever you do listen to this show today, you were providing us with laughs all weekend with that. But it is a thing. Like a guy who's a goal scorer needs his weapon, but I don't know, Johnny. Like Oshie hits 1,000 games. Mm-hmm. This team seems like they've got some serious swagger. Spencer Carberry, just talking to one of the players on the team, just told me like, it was Dylan Strome. I have no problem saying who said this because it was positive. And he's talking about the fact that, Spencer Carberry like has the it factor, right? When he comes into the room, he just has that aura about him that a lot of coaches have. And he just continues to learn. Like Dylan Strome was like, it's really impressive how sort of, honest the guy is and how he knows like there are things he's learning about being a head coach in this league, and he makes it a partnership with the players. And so it's not surprising to see Ovi kind of dragging the team in the way that he's playing. And look, I think Carlson deserves a lot of credit too. He's really playing at a very high level, which
He's
we
coming up
haven't
on 1,000
seen.
games too.
We haven't seen that. His play, I don't want to say it dropped off, but like, he was a Norris Trophy candidate in a lot of years of his career. And, I would say he tailed off a little bit, but he's really pushed himself, back up into playing at that like elite level #1 defenseman for the Washington Capitals as of late. So, you add all those things, Johnny, and there's certainly, a case to be made for why this team is going to make the playoffs.
And they have a huge game as you're looking at the standings right now. Tomorrow night, don't want to get too ahead of ourselves, but tomorrow the Capitals and Red Wings actually face off. So that's going to be essentially a huge playoff game. And, the winner of that game will take not commanding, but, the Red Wings could jump Washington, or Washington can get a 3-point lead over Detroit. So that's a big one tomorrow night to watch out for between these two teams. But the Capitals have now won 5 of 6. They're buzzing. They're playing the right way too. They're not winning games by any fluke. And that's what's impressive too. Charlie Lindgren has done such an incredible job in goal for them. And I don't know if Lindgren, was a guy who really had a ton of respect prior to the season around the league. He wasn't really a starter in the NHL, but he was a guy who was so good in college, came into the league and was a very strong, reliable backup. And this year has earned, that 1A title. So I think everything's going right for Washington, but something that we also have to talk about too, which we kind of led off with before the weekend on Thursday, was the Tom Wilson play against Toronto, and he ends up getting 6 games. And I just want to hear your thoughts on that play and the suspension.
I think that it was reasonable. I mean, the more I watched that play, the more that I thought it was ugly.
Inexcusable.
Inexcusable. Like, whether you meant to do it or not, you got to control your stick. I mean, that's your job, is to control your stick, and you can't be a danger to other players. There's absolutely no excuse for that. So, it's a huge loss for the Caps because he's really an important player for them. But I got no problems with it. I don't. I don't think I would have had a problem if they gave him 10 games. Seriously.
Really?
I mean,
10?
yeah, I wouldn't have had a problem with it. Like, you got to control your stick. Like, it's one thing when you're trying to hit a guy, you lose control of your elbows, you lose control of whatever, like, but your stick, like, to swing it like that, I mean, it looked like a baseball play. It really did. So, one thing in the chat right now, last game of the year, Caps at Flyers from Passendi. So
wow.
that'll be a big game. But I just want to say one thing before we finish this Tom Wilson conversation.
Yeah.
This is why it's hard to jump teams this time of year, though, because like you said, like the Detroit Red Wings are playing Washington, right? And so someone is coming out with more points in that game. You hope it doesn't go to overtime, because you don't want to see 3 points given out on a night like that. But at the end of the day, like, this is why it's hard to jump teams. Like, the Flyers and the Caps are going to play each other last game of the year. It's trending towards that having serious playoff implications. It really is. So
that could be one of those, maybe a repeat of that 2010 Flyers Rangers game, right? Where it came down to that last game. That was a game 7. It ended up going to a shootout. The Flyers win the shootout, and they end up going to the Stanley Cup final that year. That was like, one of the bigger heartbreaks for me as a Ranger fan growing up, was that Ole Jokinen shootout move. I don't know if you remember that one. He came like full ice, tried to go backhand 5-hole, and just it was a tough look.
Yeah. So Big E's asking why the stick change for Ovi. It sounds as if they stopped making that stick. A lot of times these factories put patterns to bed, or they change factories, or I remember back in the day, it was funny, like, our sticks were coming out of somewhere in Asia at one point. And there was some sort of weather issue somewhere in Asia where the sticks were being made, Easton sticks, and they weren't like they lost a whole factory. Like a whole factory went offline or something, and they were like having a hard time like recreating a lot of guys' patterns at that point. And a lot of guys were having issues with their sticks at that point because the factory went down, and that stuff is so delicate. I also think like as Vic is chiming in here in the chat, like just make him whatever he wants to use. This guy is going to go down as the greatest goal scorer of all time. I can't believe they would stop making his stick. Like make him like 150 of them or 200 of them and then close up shop, you know, for that pattern. But I don't know the exact details of the story. I really just see Jeremiah kind of talking about it consistently. So I can't like comment on the detail of it
until you hear it from Ovechkin himself. Like, I don't know what the detail would be either, but I know that they didn't Easton do the same thing for Marty St. Louis when he finished his career. Like he only used those yellow synergies, and I'm pretty sure he had them basically until he retired, and those weren't anywhere else, right? It was just for Marty St. Louis from what I understand. So but the stick thing is such a big deal. It is such a big deal. It's not a little thing.
That pisses me off that I never liked. Like I have this one Easton stick behind me, and it's got like different graphics, right? And one thing the companies used to make you do is they'd say, look, we'll keep making your old stick, but we want to put the new graphics on it. And like that bothered me because I'd get the stick and it wouldn't feel the same. It would feel a little heavier or a little bit lighter. Maybe there was different color paint, and different color paint might weigh different. You know, like that's your tool, you know, and you notice a lot of guys. Some guys change sticks all the time. Like they've got a power play stick, they got a 5-on-5 stick. It's like no big deal. You see guys Bauer one game, Warrior one game, they go into a slump, whatever. Then there's some guys that are just really particular and really finicky about it, like me. Like I could notice the slightest differences with my sticks. And I just remember, especially at BU, it's when Easton had a lot of new sticks coming out, the S19s and the Stealth, and they kept wanting me to use the new graphics. Because BU, obviously, there's a lot of kids at those games. They want you. And I used to fight with the rep all the time and be like, I want my graphics. I want the red bottom. I don't want you to mess with anything else. The butt end had like it was effective, right?
Yeah.
So you got to think that played a role for Ovechkin this year.
Also, I got to shout out Grinnell. He texted me just now correcting me that it was Warrior that continued to make the stick for St. Louis, not Easton, I think is who I said. Also, I was never
I didn't know that I don't remember St. Louis being a Warrior stick guy. I don't remember that. And I remember even the 11 playoffs. Was he still in Tampa at the 11 playoffs?
Yeah, he went to New York in 2014.
Yeah, so like and so I saw him pretty up close and personal that year, and I could have sworn he always had that yellow sin bomb, but I feel like Grinelli would know that. Like,
yeah, I don't really know the specs.
That's like a detail that he would know. So I'm definitely I'm not pushing back on it, but I don't remember it.
I was never really big into the equipment, like name and stuff. Like I always just like took what I liked, and that was really it. Cornell just said Easton at the beginning, Warrior at the end. So okay, I definitely, I trust him over myself for sure.
When I think of Warrior and some of that like old guard of guys, like
Kovalchuk comes to mind for me.
I just think of Covey. That's it, because I remember the commercials and they had the AK stick, and there was like, it was almost like weed or like pot themed. Like they were doing all these like weird, oh my God. Yeah. They had all these funky names for their sticks when they first came out. So, you know, I do kind of remember that, but I think more Kovalchuk, you know, like when I think of that. So, it's funny, actually, the rep for Warrior is a BU guy, Peter Marshall, and he just gave a new pair of gloves to the our Flyers Warriors equipment guy for me. So I got to give a little love to Warrior. Shout out to Peter Marshall for hooking me up with a new pair of mitts. What are you laughing at?
She's just flooding my text with pictures now of St. Louis with the Warrior stick, as if I didn't believe
it. Hey, we're not
just read it out loud.
We're not challenging.
I trusted your word, G. I trusted your word. Yeah.
We believe you. No, we're not We got someone, Neil says, with the white Nike skates. Yeah, oh yeah, those were flashy. Everybody
But
has
while
a
we're on the
yellow
topic
synergy
of
strip.
the Eastern Conference, I think we should talk about the full playoff picture right now because it is coming down to the wire here, and I think you can eliminate officially the Devils, even though they won yesterday on Long Island. I think you can officially eliminate the Penguins, the Sabres, and the team to talk about right now that continues to have opportunity after opportunity. I just mumbled my words there, but to get back into the race, and they continue to just find a different way to ruin it for themselves is the New York Islanders. I mean, that performance yesterday to lose 4-0 on home ice in what is essentially, I know Colby gives me shit for this, but calling it a must-win game, which it is. Like that's a must-win game on home ice. You have a chance to, really get back into the picture, and you lose 4-0.
But wait,
Like,
can you give some context as to why I give you shit for calling it a must? You've been saying must-win games for like 6 months. Like
well,
you call everything a must-win. Like you don't save must-win for the must-win. So then I feel like it's not credible when you say must-win because you've already said it 19 times. You've got to wait, keep that one in the chamber for when it really matters. That way it has a little bit of more oomph to it.
well, there's must wins and there's can't loses. We've talked about this before. But yesterday, after Detroit doesn't get a point on the road in Nashville, which is huge for the Islanders, for Detroit to not get a single point in a game that was 0-0 with like 5 minutes left. You have a chance to come within 1 point now. What was the second wild card spot at the time, because Washington was playing at the same time as well, and you just choke on home ice, and they lose. They lost to Ottawa a couple days ago on home ice.
You're talking about Detroit choking on home ice?
No, the Islanders.
Okay, sorry.
Yeah, the Islanders lost. They lost in Detroit on Thursday. Every chance they've had to just get themselves back in, they've choked. And I think yesterday is a must win because Detroit wasn't able to come up with a point, which gives the Islanders an opportunity to come within a point, and they don't win. That's why I thought it was a must win, or maybe a can't lose. I don't know. I think I'm fumbling on myself a little bit this morning, but you know what I mean. I think the Islanders have just continued to beat themselves, and the Jack Hughes goal yesterday. I know you were busy doing the college show yesterday, Colby, but this goal just is everything about this Islander season. They have 3 players collide at the top of the offensive zone. Then Jack Hughes comes down on a 2-on-1 and scores to make it 2-0, and that just sucked all the life out of the building yesterday at UBS Arena. I mean, look at this. 3 guys, Palmieri, Horvat, and Pelech coming together and colliding. I mean, it was just like angels in the outfield almost, like the first scene of that movie. Like that's kind of what it looked like on Long Island yesterday.
Look, they're not built to win. They need drastic changes. The whole, Matt Barzell's an elite player crowd has been really, really quiet as of late. Really, really quiet as of late, which is kind of funny. Especially when, that whole debacle was taking place. Look, this is who they are. This is who they've been all season. They've had a couple of little stretches under Patrick Waugh that looked a little bit better, but I mean, I don't think we're really looking at them as part of the playoff race anymore. I just don't. Yeah. I just don't think that we're looking at them like that anymore. So here's my question for you about the New Jersey Devils.
Mm-hmm.
What would have happened if they brought in Jake Allen 2 months ago?
Yeah, he's been playing great for them. I mean, it certainly would have been a difference maker, obviously, right?
Are they
he didn't start yesterday, though. It was Kokkonen.
Well, but
yesterday.
I mean, him or Kokkonen, what happens if they go out and bring those guys in, or one of those guys in 2 months ago? Are they a playoff team then?
I mean, it's easier to say now, right? But yeah, I mean, I think the one thing the Devils have been getting knocked on this year was goaltending. It was the one thing that was a clear need for them. They waited to the last minute to do it. And I think, we could sit here now and say after Jake Allen has played really well for them that sure the Devils would be in a playoff spot, but there's no guarantee. Right. They still had issues in the back end. Would it have helped them? Probably, because it's helped them a little bit as of late. But they still lost on home ice the other night to Ottawa on Saturday. That was a stinker of a game. So like you said, you can't just guarantee wins, right? Like Colby, you talk about it all the time when teams have a game in hand. Doesn't mean they're wins. So while getting Allen and Kokkonen would have helped them, maybe a little bit earlier, there's no guarantee that it would have changed the course of their season.
I say this all the time. It's one thing to play with pressure, and it's another
Mhm.
thing at pressure and expectations, and it's another thing to play with house money. They're two totally different things. And when you find yourself out of the playoffs, and your season, you didn't get Jacob Markstrom, you didn't make huge splashes at the deadline, you didn't land big fishes. I think you're playing with house money. And I think, the Islanders have been playing with house money. Then they got on a streak. And then the minute the pressure and expectations started to get dialed up, we saw who they really were. I think the Devils have continued to do that for the last couple of months, right? They play with house money. They might win a little. And then all of a sudden it's like, oh, the Devils are creeping back up. And then here goes a losing streak. Here goes inconsistency. Here goes, puck mismanagement. Here goes, bad habits, turnovers, whatever. So totally different situation once you're playing with house money. But, you look at this playoff, this race, it's basically, look, Tampa's 7-1-2 in their last 10 games. They're hot. They're heating up. They didn't have Braden Point or Victor Hedman last night? They didn't have those guys. I don't think they had either. What?
Yeah. In Anaheim?
They didn't have either of those guys last night, so you kind of wonder what's their status. Hopefully it's a day-to-day thing and there's no long-term there. But I think we can comfortably say Tampa's a playoff team.
Yeah.
I don't think anybody's doubting that. But then after that, the Flyers, they're 4-4-2 in their last 10. They've got it back on the rails a little bit. They didn't play very well yesterday, although I shouldn't say that. Full disclosure, I didn't see any of that game. So I just saw comments. I saw what Torts said. I saw Big E in the chat.
What Torts didn't say.
Well, I saw Big E in the chat said they peppered Stolars and they couldn't score. Well, look, you're playing against the other team's backup goalie. Like, you got to score. Like, I don't, Torts didn't seem to give Sandstrom a big vote of confidence after that game. And then there was a clarification that came from Flyers PR later in the evening that said, look, Torts thinks that Felix Sandstrom was trying his ass off, giving a good effort. Obviously, just the results weren't there. But I still think the Flyers find their way into the playoffs. Like, I really do. I'm not out on them yet.
Well, it's coming down to 3 teams, although it's really looking like 2 teams right now fighting for that last wild card spot. But Washington has 2 games in hand over Philadelphia, and they're 2 points back of that 3rd spot.
And they still play each other one more time.
Yeah. There's actually a chance, not to make this about the Rangers or anything, but there's a strong chance we see Rangers-Washington in the first round if Carolina continues to play hot too. Carolina, the Rangers are finding ways to win again, but Carolina, is right there with the Rangers for that first spot in the net. It would not surprise me if they jump them.
I think this is the reason why they're not changing to a 3-2-1, because this is keeping more teams in it at the end here. But I also think when you look at the bottom races for like wild card and stuff, I think this is probably why you shouldn't expand the playoffs. Like, I think we've got the right amount of teams in the playoffs because, again, like, you start looking at the record and the goal differential and you start looking at teams 7, 8, 9, 10 and like, do they really deserve to be like, do the Islanders and the Devils and whatever, if they were to have like a little play-in tournament, do they really deserve that based on their season? They really don't. They really don't. I feel like the bottom race of the Eastern Conference is proving why the amount of playoff teams, the amount of playoff teams needs to stay the same. I'm laughing. Jeremiah in the chat.
Yeah, he's coming hot now.
Of course, we will get Caps Rangers because my marriage needs that. A divided household. Clearly, I see some college hockey questions and talk in the chat. We're going to get to that later in the show. The other thing, I haven't seen a lot of bets. I don't know. Maybe there have been.
One. I saw one.
You saw one. Yeah. So if you do have an idea for a good bet for tonight, make sure you lay it in the chat. That way we give Vic a little bit of time to pull it together. But just wrapping here on the Eastern Conference,
Well, let me ask you this, Cole, because we talked about it a little bit before, but for the overall fan, take out Detroit being original 6, take out, I guess don't take this part out, but If you're just a general hockey fan, would you rather? Am I boring you? Would you rather see?
You're always boring me.
Would you rather see the Red Wings or the Capitals get into the playoffs? I'm having a hard time deciding. Like, to me, having a chance to see Ovechkin in the playoffs, maybe like one more time, would be sick. But Patrick Kane is that playoff guy, right?
Well,
Like,
that's
he's
what I
the
was
one,
just gonna say.
like
You're really asking me is would I rather see Patrick Kane or Ovechkin in the
exactly.
playoffs? That's
Yeah.
to me, that feels more what you're asking me.
Mhm.
I think because here's what I'm gonna say. I think I would say the Caps, and the reason for that being is because they're playing really good hockey right now. You've got Detroit 3-7-0 right now in their last 10 games. All right. So if Detroit makes the playoffs, they're limping in. And I do love Detroit. I love listening to Ken Daniels call a game. Kaner is total showtime. But I just think I'd rather see a team that could come in and put up a fight in the first round. And I think Washington can put up more of a fight than Detroit, just based on Ovi and how hot they've been, and the experience of Carlson and Ovechkin and TJ Oshie. And I also, I'm partial to Spencer Carberry. So I'd like to see him get in the playoffs. I think that, Big E said, I think the Wings are a guaranteed first round exit.
Yeah.
I think any of those
I think
teams,
both are.
I think they're both guaranteed first round
Yeah.
exits, but
Yeah.
I don't know. Like I think right now I would have to say the Caps, just based on the fact that look, they're playing really good hockey, and this is the time of year you want that. You don't want teams to limp in. Like it changes the dynamic a little bit when that happens.
Yeah. And also, just on the flip side too, with Detroit, there has been a significant difference when Dylan Larkin's in the lineup versus when Larkin's out of the lineup. I don't know. Like, obviously, your captain makes a huge difference when they're in or out, but like the significant, like noticeable difference in the record when he's in versus when he's out is pretty remarkable. And for Detroit, while I personally think it would be better for the league overall to have Ovechkin in, just because he's the guy that's been talked about for so long. He's nowhere near, this playoff goal record. I looked it up before. Wayne Gretzky has 50 more playoff goals than him. So I don't think there's any chance of Ovechkin scoring 50 more goals in the playoffs in his career. And I'll go on record saying that. It's not me betting against Ovechkin. It's me betting against the Capitals being in the playoffs that long enough for him to do it. And I think just having this conversation around Ovechkin and the Capitals is more of a popular conversation than Kane and the Red Wings. Although the Red Wings haven't been in the playoffs for a long time, and it would be cool to see an original six get back in. And I don't think they've played, correct me if I'm wrong, I don't think Detroit's played a playoff game in Little Caesars Arena yet.
No.
Since they opened it up.
No.
Yeah, I don't think it's been done.
Here's you just made me think of something actually before we move on to the Western Conference. Here's something that I don't understand about the NHL. Why do we not count playoffs when we talk about a player's scoring or we talk about a player's games played in the NHL?
Counted separately.
What? Right. That's what I mean. Why? Yeah. Like, okay, here's a good example. Okay. Mm-hmm. Kevin Shattenkirk is going to play. He's going to end up with like 950, 60 NHL games maybe after this season, maybe a little bit more than that. And I don't know if he's going to retire after this year or not. I bet you he's played another 50 or so playoff games, right? But he's never going to get the 1,000 game silver stick. And I don't understand why. We all agree that basically like playing one playoff game is probably like playing 3 regular season games as far as the toll that it takes on you. I feel like one playoff goal is like 2.5 regular season goals. Okay. Honestly, it's so much harder to get it done in the playoffs. So why do we not count it all encompassing when we talk about a player, how many goals they've scored, how many points they scored? Vic just hit us in the chat or in our conversation. So Shattenkirk has 85 playoff games. So by that standard, he's played over 1,000 games, but he won't get credited for 1,000 unless he comes back another year and plays another 40 whatever regular season games. I don't understand that. You look at Crosby, Kane, Taves, like we talk about their games played. What about the 100 plus 100 and like they've all played an additional 2 seasons worth of playoff games in their career. And you know, I just don't think we talk about that enough when those games are more important, more impactful, and more stressful on your body. Like it doesn't make any sense to me. Well, why?
I mean, I don't really have the answer for that, but I think it is just like a separate conversation. And I mean, in the Shattenkirk case, you know, that just sucks. Like, honestly, like he should get that recognition in that case. But, you know, you talk about it in every other sport too. There's the regular season conversation versus the playoff conversation. I mean, I think about a guy like Jack Eichel. You know, he spent what 9 years in the NHL without making the playoffs, or 8 years maybe, gets in for the first time and wins the Stanley Cup. And no one's really going to talk about his playoff games played right now because he's only been in the playoffs one time, but he won. You know, I think that's a different scenario too, right? Like there's so
Yeah, but
many
I
different...
don't think we're. I don't think we're.
No,
we're
I'm
not,
just saying it's just a separate conversation. It's just
New York Marine said they don't get paid in the playoffs. Yeah, that's
well,
true.
you made that point too. Yeah,
you don't get paid in the playoffs. Your salary stops on April 15th or April 20th, whatever it is, the last day of the regular season. So you make all your money in 6 months for the year. So like if you normally if you're an employee, you get paid 24 paychecks a year over the course of 12 months, something like that. If you're a hockey player, you get 12 paychecks over the course of 6 months, basically, is how you're paid in the NHL. So it just doesn't make sense because these are harder games to score in and harder games to play. So like why, when we talk about how many goals a guy has scored, how many games a guy has played, why is it not all one number? It makes no sense. Yeah, we talk about it separately, but like, and we should highlight what special players do in the playoffs. Like Danny Briere was a playoff monster, and there's guys in the history of their careers that were better playoff players than regular season players. But I don't know. Like, I just think we're leaving stuff on the table when, like, TJ Oshie just hit his 1,000th game. Vic, can you do me a favor and look up how many playoff games TJ Oshie's played? Like why do we wait for 1,000 regular season games? I understand not counting.
No, that's a good point. Point.
I understand not counting preseason. That I understand.
Yeah.
By that standard, I would have had another 25 games in the league or something like that. But
the 1,000 game milestone, though, I think playoffs should be included.
Okay, TJ Oshie's played 102 playoff games. So that's more than a whole season of playoff games. So why do we have to wait for 1,000 regular season to make that adjustment? Justin Williams in the chat from Big E is another guy, playoff performer, like good NHL player in the regular season, great playoff performer. Why, when we talk about his career, and I know we do, but his stats, his games, his goals, it should be one number.
Well, the NCAA does that too, right? The regular season and playoffs and tournament are all combined into one.
Chef Richard says, do they get a basic salary from the PA, or nothing at all in the postseason? The PA has absolutely nothing to do with paying players. What you get in the playoffs is you get a share of revenue. There's a revenue split with ownership, and like there's a pool of money based on overall sales, attendance, concessions. They take that pool of money, divide it up, and then like the winning team who wins the cup gets X, the losing team gets less than that. You get to through the first round, if you lose in the first round, you get paid absolutely nothing. Okay. Plus you do get per diem every day in the playoffs or whatever, or when you travel. So for all your road trips, you get like 100 and whatever it is a day, $115 a day in per diem. But yeah, no, you're not getting paid. So I know we just kind of went a little bit wild off topic, but
I want to rewind for 1 second though, quick too, because we got 2 good questions in the chat also. Unless you had one final thing to say about it.
Go ahead.
Well, Michael Pumelli said, any chance the Lightning can catch Toronto for the 3rd spot, which I think they can. They're only 4 points back. And then Jeremiah said, why can't both the Red Wings and Capitals make the playoffs? Not offense to Philly, but wouldn't it almost be better for the Flyers to miss just because of the rebuild? And we kind of touched on that a little bit too. I'd rather see both Washington and Detroit in over Philly personally.
Well, that's because you don't want to lose a bet. I think you're crazy. You're crazy to think that, because honestly, like, hockey in Philadelphia, anybody around the league will tell you hockey is better when the Flyers are good. The Flyers,
yeah, but it's the Capitals and Red Wings. It's not like we're talking about like a team that doesn't get fans in over them.
I'm just saying, Wells Fargo Center playoff games. Like, I mean, look, I'm not, by no means am I a Flyers fan. I'm not. I grew up a Flyers fan, but I don't have an ounce of that in me at this point. But you can't. I mean, you're talking about the Flyer. Like, yeah, the Red Wings are an original 6. The Caps are like, the Flyers are like an original set, or the original 7 is what people kind of say. Like, that's a kind of a cornerstone franchise of an Eastern market that I think it's good for hockey to have them back in the playoffs, competitive, big names surrounding that team, that organization. It's a very valuable franchise and a very important city to the game of hockey, in my opinion. So I don't disagree with Jeremiah. It would have been better for them to miss the playoffs this year, but at this point, it wouldn't be better for them now. They've come this far. They've built this base this year through the ups and the downs of Torts, but I don't think it would be better now at this point for them to miss. 3 months ago, 4 months ago, completely with you, not at this point.
And Big E just said, who would have the best chance to win a first round series between the 3? I think Detroit has the least. I would argue that Philly actually might have the best chance, depending on who they'd play. Like, we don't know if the Rangers or Panthers or even the Canes or Boston are going to finish first in the East, assuming that they get that second wild card spot the teams we're talking about. But I would think, this might be crazy to say, I actually would think Philly could upset Boston in a first round series over the Rangers, Carolina, and Florida. I would say that comfortably.
Well, I think, I don't think it's happening, but if you had a pick between those top teams, like the Bruins for sure. I think, because we've said that all year about them, in regards to, are they a playoff team? Are they built for the playoffs? State of Survival asks, when do playoff bonuses get paid? My playoff bonus from 2011, I've got it 3 days before the U.S. Open. So the U.S. Open starts mid-August.
Tennis?
Yeah, the U.S. Open tennis is.
I think it's around like Labor Day weekend. So
right,
end of August, first week of September.
So we got our playoff bonuses then, because they have to compute everything and figure everything out and then divvy everything up. So you get those late in the summer. I just remember that because was going to the US Open that year, and I just remember it, it came into, I got an account, like a notification or whatever of a direct deposit, and I was like, what could this be? Because we hadn't gotten paid in a while, and I remember looking at it being like, holy shit, that's nice. I wasn't expecting that. So that's kind of when that happened. So let's go to the West, Johnny, because I think
we've
the
done
West,
a lot of these.
Plenty to talk about in the West with what's going on, and I think we got to start with the Nashville Predators, because I think I'm finally ready. Like, if we had power rankings today, you had them in 10 days ago, so I'll give you credit there. I wasn't ready to put them in at that point. I'm ready now.
Yeah, I mean, 15-0-2 in their last 17. They've won 5 games in a row against really strong teams. Lankinen shut out the Panthers on Thursday. They shut out Detroit on Saturday. Philip Forsberg is on fire. I mean, this team has everything going in the right direction. And listen, that building too, talk about Nashville as a hockey market. They love the Preds. I watched that game while I was at MSG. I had the Detroit Nashville game on, and granted, I didn't have the volume on my screen, but it looked like it was a playoff game just from watching it on my computer. And essentially it was, because Detroit needs the points too. But man, I would do, if I could watch a playoff game anywhere outside of the Bell Center, because I've never been there, I think Nashville would be my second pick to see an NHL playoff game.
So I called a game 7 between Winnipeg and Nashville years ago for
Was that the
Westwood
Sissons
1.
hat trick that game?
No, that was Pecorine let a softie in couple
Mm.
minutes into the game. The air and the energy came out of the building, and Winnipeg won that game and went on to win that series. But I saw the Justin Timberlake concert the night before at Bridgestone, which was sick, by the way. Concerts in Nashville hit a little different. Philip Forsberg's about to get 40 goals this year. Like, we don't give him enough credit and enough love. Philip Forsberg, probably because he's in a small market. But first of all, probably the best mustache in the NHL.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe him or
100%.
maybe him or your boy Vinny Trocheck.
I
But
think it's Forsberg.
yeah. Oh, he's number one. I think Trocheck has more of the Freddie Mercury look
Yeah, he
going,
does.
which I
He
actually
does.
think is really cool too. Like, he
Yeah.
pulls it off really well. Like, when he was texting me jokes about you, I was telling him how he looks like Freddie Mercury, and he was loving that. But Roman Josi and Philip Forsberg, just these guys have gone to another level. I mean, Roman Josi, a lot of nights is the best defenseman in the world. Like, there are nights where he's actually a better player than Cale Makar. And I don't say that lightly, but there are nights where he goes to that medieval place and just can control a game, up and down the ice, in transition, finds that layer. Like, yeah, he'll lead the rush, but there's nobody better at finding that second wave and being between the F1 back check and like F2, F3 back check. He always gets between those two guys and finds that little sort of soft area joining the rush. It's like poetry watching him play. And then Catherine Craig said, Forsberg Nyquist dynamic duo, the goose, man. Gustav Nyquist, former Maine Black Bear, guy who absolutely fucking terrorized me in college. Just constantly made me look like an asshole when I played against him at Maine. And Maine wasn't very good, but man, he just fucking had my number in the worst way possible when we were in college. But yeah, man, his career has kind of resurrected this season in Nashville, and they're cruising. I mean, are they ever?
Yeah, and we have to talk about Forsberg fighting Mo Seider. I mean, that was an unreal tilt between the two of those two, and Seider ended up getting the best of Forsberg, but this camera angle right here, this fight was unbelievable. You don't
throwing
see these
lefts.
two guys.
Seider's throwing lefts.
You don't see these two guys drop the gloves often, but what a big spark for that game it was. And Forsberg had some funny quotes after the game about it too. He's actually a really cool guy. Also, I've had the chance to talk to Philip Forsberg now a couple times. When I was out in Vegas for the Player Media Tour doing my Bleacher Report skates, like a lot of the guys sat on the bench and talked to me, and Forsberg spoke to me for like 30, 40 minutes. I mean, he was.
Did you sit in his stall or no?
No, I didn't sit. There was no stalls there. But it's funny. I'll tell that story. I don't know if I told it on the show or not, if I just told you on the phone, but I went to the Rangers practice last week to talk to Roslovic and Wenberg, and Roslovic sits like right next to Trocheck. So I was sitting in actually in Lafreniere's stall, I think, next to Roslovic.
Just basking in Lafreniere's stall.
But that's what you do when you're interviewing guys one-on-one. You sit next
I
to
never
them.
do that when I'm in
you never did like the interviews in the locker room. It's like when you're doing that for the media.
I wouldn't sit in someone else's stall. I just think that that's a little bit of disrespect.
You don't stand over them and talk to them one-on-one. It's a weird.
Yeah, but normally they stand up to talk to you. If you're friends with them, they'll stand up.
No, they're typically sitting down when it's a one-on-one. They're getting.
Do you dap guys before you interview them?
I shake their hand formally.
What about if it's Foxy?
That's more of a dap.
You shake
or like
his
a
hand.
pound.
Hello, Mr. Fox.
Or a pound. But Trocheck walked in. Trocheck walked into his stall, and I was sitting next to Roslovic, and I was like, "Oh shit!" Like he's gonna text Colby, and I'm sitting in the stalls again. So I got up, and then I just felt super awkward, and I just sat back down. I don't know if he caught that or not, but for anyone in the chat, yeah,
rent free.
Yeah. Well, anyone in the chat who doesn't know the background story, I guess Trocheck was texting Colby about how I'm a little too comfortable in the Rangers locker room, and Colby was giving me shit for sitting in the guy's stalls. So I got a little awkward when Trocheck walked in, and I was sitting in a stall. So I guess that's a little inside joke we have.
Can we stay with the Western Conference?
Yeah,
we've got Chef Richard in the chat right now, making jokes about Lafreniere. What's going on with his Jets? 3 straight. This team does this little this little peak and valley. Like at times they just look like the most dominant team in the NHL, and then they like lose 3 or 4 games. Rick Bowness is still not on the bench, right? Can we get a confirmation on that? I didn't see their game yesterday. I didn't see it. I was working, so I didn't see it.
I don't believe so. I'd have to double check. I was flipping back and forth between all the games yesterday. It was such a busy slate yesterday. But as
it's
far
interesting. It's just interesting. You've got the Jets sliding. Okay. You've got Vancouver that's seemingly finding its game again and playing better. And then you've got Edmonton that goes out to Ontario and lays an egg on back-to-back nights and ruins the Zach Hyman 50 goals.
Blew a 3-1 lead in the third to Ottawa.
Chef Richard says it's the annual Jets collapse. Like, it really does feel like this is an every year thing for them. Like, I remember being in Chicago, I think 2 years ago, and I was like, they're going to win the cup this year. And this was in like maybe like January. And then it just felt the wheels just freaking came off hard. So it does seem like this is an annual thing for the Jets. It's got to make you nervous going into playoffs.
Yeah, and what's weird about Winnipeg too is they played against the Rangers and for the most part looked pretty dominant until
what? That's what you have been saying about that game. And I didn't watch that game because when you're at a Ranger game, I do other games. Yeah. I talked to some other hockey people about that game, and I don't think we ever talked about this.
Well, I was going to finish and say until the last 10 minutes.
Yeah, but other good hockey people that you and I converse with did not agree with your assessment of that game. And I always ask you, how do you watch a game when your head is buried in your laptop and you're cutting videos of highlights? Like, I think you miss a lot.
No, there's definitely plays that I missed, but for the most part, I thought Winnipeg was the much better team. And I'm still confident in saying that. But the last 10 minutes of the game, the Rangers threw everything they had at Hellebuck, and he made, a ton of big saves. The Rangers missed some opportunities, but I thought the first 30 to 40 minutes of that game was the Jets were the better team. It wasn't like it was a lopsided affair, but that was a way different Winnipeg Jets team than we saw against the Devils, Islanders, and Caps. That's all I was trying to say. Like the Jets.
In what way? What do you?
The Islander game, the Jets had just no effort. The Islanders completely came out and dominated.
Okay, so you feel like their issue right now is effort based, not
necessarily. I mean, when I spoke to Ehlers about it, or Ehlers, excuse me, on what day was it? Maybe Tuesday last week. Like even he said, it was a consistency thing. Like it's not always the effort, but it's the execution too.
Okay, so let's go a little deeper. Okay, effort, consistency, like those are all sort of cliche. So
of course.
What are they not executing?
But they took their game. They took their game to the Rangers. They were zipping the puck around the offensive zone. They were collapsing in the neutral zone. They made it hard for the Rangers to get into the offensive zone with possession, at least in the first part of that game. Didn't really see much of that in the game against the Islanders. Also, like sometimes, and Colby, like there are nights where your feet are just moving, right? Like you're on your toes. You just feel better physically than you do other nights. And maybe just being on the road trip also affected them physically where, they go into Long Island playing a hungry Islanders team that, kind of shit the bed in Detroit a couple nights before and weren't able to get it going. The Islanders are one of those teams where their effort's inconsistent as well this year. But then, there are games too where you just can't find the back of the net. But I thought, just the Ranger game to the Islander game difference with Winnipeg, it was an effort and execution thing where against the Rangers, the execution was there. Against the Islanders, there was nothing.
Got it. Okay, well, this isn't the time of year to not be executing. Yeah. Last question I have for you on the West before we move on to a couple of other items we have. Are the St. Louis Blues going to get into the playoffs over the Vegas Golden Knights? Is that something that you could see happening?
Well, tonight's going to be a huge test for that because they play each other tonight. So, that should be a playoff game. And are we calling this a must win for St. Louis? I think it's fair to say, right?
Okay, I'll give you that.
Right? Like they're 4 points back. They've won what? St. Louis has won couple games in a row here, 2 games in a row. I think they've won like 5 out of the last 6 or 6 out of the last 7. I think it's something like that. They've won.
Well, they're 6. St. Louis is.
They've won 6 out of 7. 6 out of 7.
They're 6-4-0 in their last 10. Vegas is 5-5 in their last 10. So
yeah,
they're
but you say
kinda,
last 10, they've won 6 out of the last 7 games. Like, and the only loss was to Colorado in a 4-3 game. Like, they're playing really strong hockey. And everyone's stepping up throughout their lineup. But yeah, tonight I think against Vegas, and Vegas has a ton of injuries. Like, they're not, Vegas isn't this automatic playoff team right now. They've been a little inconsistent as well.
I think they'll get in though.
Well, I said last week that Minnesota was going to get in over LA, and I don't know if LA is dropping at this point.
No, because they're winning games again.
Yeah.
I mean, they're 6-3-1 in their last 10. They're not going on 6-game win streaks, but
But you think St. Louis is getting in over Vegas?
No, I do
Oh,
not.
okay, you don't.
No. I don't think that's happening. No. I'd make a bet that it doesn't. So,
well, a lot of the bets in the chat tonight are favoring St. Louis. I saw a St. Louis plus 1.5 bet, and I saw a St. Louis money line bet. I'll have to scroll up and find.
All right, well, Vic, why don't you let's talk about our friends at Betway and our Betway bet of the day. And remember, with Betway, they're still offering a great promotion. You can get a free bet of up to $200 if your first bet loses. Scan the QR code on the screen. You create a new account, and that will automatically help you redeem your bonus. So remember, if you place a bet, it loses, up to $200 will be reimbursed. You can take that $200. You can continue to bet on games, teams, sports, whatever you're into. This offer is only available outside of Ontario, but it is certainly a good opportunity to get your feet wet and get your feet into the game. So, Vic, why don't you flash our Betway bet of the day on the screen? Whose bet exactly? Who in the chat? I just want to make sure that I give the right credit here. Todd Weinberg liked the St. Louis Blues, I believe, plus 125 with the Vegas Golden Knights. Here we go. Blues money line. They're plus money at home against Vegas. They've got some injuries in Vegas. The Blues, they're healthy. They've won their last 2 games as an underdog. You're getting plus 125 here. This looks pretty good. This does look pretty good. It is a big game, though, so you would expect some of the big-time players on Vegas to step it up a little bit. But that's our Betway bet of the day. Again, we love our partners at Betway. They're our presenting sponsor. We do our Betway bet of the day. They're always giving our listeners different opportunities to get their money back, to get bonuses. Those things are important. So we'll continue to monitor how our bets, our chat bets are going, and what they're doing. So before we get into a little college hockey talk, I do want to do our
chat bets are 1-0 so far, by the way.
Okay. So before we go into our college hockey talk, I do want to do our Tim Hortons tweet of the night. But I know you thought we were doing a different tweet for this game. So we got to pivot a little bit here. And I want to throw up your tweet from last night, Johnny, because this was a little bit of a disturbing tweet for last night. And it's a picture of Johnny's chicken parm and pasta, clearly with red sauce. Okay. No ketchup. And he wrote redemption. And there's a reason he did not tag John Butchergross in this tweet, because he knew how sad this chicken parm looked and how hard this chicken parm
I didn't think so.
would be scrutinized. Okay. We don't have Pizza Sports Guy in the chat today, but that's not good looking chicken parm, buddy. That's pretty weak looking chicken parm. Okay, redemption. You didn't have ketchup, but that is not great chicken parm.
And I got to shout out Pizza Sports Guy too, because I stopped by his shop on my way home on Thursday.
What's his shop called?
It's called Cafe Dolce Vita. It's in Deer Park and in Jericho on Long Island. I stopped by on Thursday to say what's up. He gave me 2 slices, the MVP, the marinara, vodka, and pesto slice. It was
Todd Weinberg. That was chicken.
It was, first of all, the meal was great, by the way. And yeah, Pizza Sports Guy gave me some 2 homemade sauces, a vodka and a marinara. So I want to thank you for that. That was very nice.
We love Pizza Sports Guy. Vic, put that tweet back up. Our Tim Hortons tweet of the night. Let's roll up to win is back for Tim's 60th anniversary. Celebrate our big year with some big cash prizes, an all-electric Volkswagen ID4, sun-soaked Hilton Getaway, and cash. Everybody loves cash. How about a daily jackpot of $10,000? Okay, 10 grand, Johnny. I hope you're playing the roll up to win, because $10,000 would do wonders for your dating life. And I know a Volkswagen ID4, an electric Volkswagen ID4, would help cut down all those gas miles and all that gas when you're driving to Boston every weekend or wherever else you go for your Hinge dates. So you can play today on the Tim Hortons app. We appreciate our partners at Tim Hortons. Hey, I'm going to play because I want the 10 grand, especially so I can hang it over your head. Daily opportunities to win that $10,000. So our Tim Hortons tweet of the night goes to our boy Jonny Laz with his horrifying chicken parm looks. D. Ely said that looked like chicken parm from Burger King. I haven't seen a lot of D. Ely in the chat today, but coming in strong with that comment, because again, that wasn't ketchup, but that was some bad looking chicken parm. If you want to go to Johnny's Twitter page, John Butchergross replied with a meme of some
the Northwestern
sort,
kid.
A horrified meme, because we all know that did not look very good. Do you want to defend yourself at all, or should we go to college hockey talk?
No, I think I'm retiring from the food takes for a bit on Twitter. But I do want to say Chef Richard asked if we've ever had Tim's coffee in the chat. And I just want to say, when I was at Mercyhurst, I had Tim's coffee before every single game. It was my pregame routine. I go to Tim's after morning skate, get a farmer's wrap, get a medium coffee with a little cream and sugar, and
light and sweet.
I'm more of the cream than I am in the coffee. I'm one of those.
Well, you'll like this, Chef Richard. The only time I go for Tim Hortons is when I would be in Winnipeg doing a game, because
when you walk in the NHL,
when you walk from the Delta Hotel to the arena and you go through the pedestrian way, there's a little Tim Hortons on your way, and you can't walk by the Tims without grabbing a couple of Timbits, right? So
and an ice cap. The ice caps are the best.
So
big fan of ice cap.
So to everybody in the chat who's been hitting us with college hockey questions, we don't necessarily see all of them because a lot of them are farther up. So if you do have college hockey questions, get them into the chat right now. We're going to spend the next couple of minutes before we wrap the show talking about the NCAA tournament. We had the selection show last night. You know, everybody's rolling their eyes at the fact that Boston University, the number 2 overall seed, has to go to Sioux Falls, South Dakota, and Denver, the number 3 overall seed, has to come to Springfield, Massachusetts, when those teams are supposed to get prioritized, okay, to stay closest to home. There are bracket principles that the NCAA committee uses. Once you've got your field of 16, which is determined by the following: the pairwise rankings is first, and then the 5 winners of their conference tournaments get automatic bids into the NCAA tournament. If you're outside the top 16 in the pairwise, like RIT or Michigan Tech, and you win the CCHA or the Atlantic League for college conferences, you get an automatic bid into the tournament, and it knocks a team out. Like Colorado College was ranked in the top 16. They got knocked out because some things that happen in conference tournaments. So once that field is set, at that point, they try to have 1 play 16, 2 play 15, and so on and so forth, with these principles in mind. Okay. They do not allow interconference matchups to open the tournament. So you can't have a BU BC opening round or BU UMass opening round or whatever. Okay. The second principle, the second, bracket integrity piece that they look at, is,
host.
keeping. Go ahead, Johnny.
I was gonna say the host
schools, right? There are 4 regions that have host schools. Okay. This is the part where, I don't fully understand it, because UMass is the host school for Springfield, Massachusetts. They were the 16 seed, okay? and they couldn't have BU, which would have been the number 1 seed in the Springfield region as the 2 overall. They couldn't have a BU UMass opening round game. So they prioritize a 16 seed UMass and keep them in Springfield, and they send BU to Sioux Falls, which again, it is what it is. Like, it just is what it is. The reality is the committee needs to find a new way to pick the NCAA tournament. I think the pairwise is outdated. I think that there's a lot of holes in it, and I think that they need to come up with a new way to pick the tournament. But that's kind of how they pick the field and how they manipulate the bracket. And then there's 16 teams, and we're off and running starting Thursday.
Well, just to that point, too, for the people who don't know the geography of where Springfield is, UMass is the host school. It's a 30-minute, 40-minute drive to Springfield from UMass, and Denver is coming across the country, and they're the top seed in that bracket.
So you're a 1 seed, basically
playing a road game.
Playing a road game as a 1 seed. Congratulations, you won your conference tournament. You had a top 5 season. Here's a road game to start the NCAA tournament. It makes no sense.
That's why it's a big deal.
It makes absolutely no sense. And how about North Dakota, Michigan, Michigan State, and who's the 4? And Western Michigan are in a 2,500 seat arena in St. Louis, Missouri. Again, make it make sense. Those fan bases travel better than anyone else. Each team gets 400 tickets. How about this? This was sent to me during our show today. Okay. I'm just going to pull this text up from a tweet, right? So right now, okay, on the secondary market on StubHub for a game in the St. Louis region, which is North Dakota, Michigan, Michigan State, Western Michigan, upwards of the cheapest ticket is $832 for 1 ticket for the opening round of the NCAA men's hockey tournament, because all North Dakota fans travel, Michigan fans travel, Michigan State fans travel. Okay, Western Michigan, probably not quite as much, but now people are going to be paying $2,000 a ticket to go to the tournament. I mean, make it make sense. It doesn't. Yeah. For anybody asking, it does not make sense.
Yeah, it sucks. But again, no reason not to watch, right? It's going to be a great tournament. A lot of great teams, a lot of great players.
A lot of blue bloods. Big names,
of
blue bloods. Listen, it's BC's tournament to lose. Plain and simple. Boston College is the best team. To me, the only team that can beat BC is BC. And they've got too much talent. They've got a heck of a D-core. They've got probably one of the best 2 or 3 goaltenders in Fowler in the country. If you're a Canadiens fan, you're loving what you're seeing there. We've got a question in the chat about Tom Willander at BU. Look, I think he's looked good. He's a real solid 2-way NHL, puck moving prototype defenseman. He's got size, he's got skating, he's got a good shot, makes a great first pass. He plays on a power play. He can do a little bit of everything really well. He's had times this year he's looked like a freshman, but he'll go back to school for another year and continue to develop. But he'll be a player for the Vancouver Canucks in the next couple of years. No doubt about that. Like, Canucks fans should be very happy at the development for Tom Willander's game this season.
Let me ask you a question, Colby. If there's one guy maybe under the radar for a hockey fan right now to have their eyes on for the NCAA tournament, who would you say? Maybe not so under the radar, but you know what I mean? Someone who hasn't been as talked about as much.
It's maybe Colin Graff at Quinnipiac. Big free agent name. He's going to get a lot of options. He's putting up a shitload of points. Honestly, the guy who isn't getting talked about enough is Rutger McGroarty. Seriously. First round pick of the Jets. I mean, he didn't make the Hobie Final 10 candidates, and it was a total travesty that he wasn't in the Final 10. I said that on the show last night. I'm on the committee, so I'm calling out other people. Like, I'm on the Hobie Baker committee, and I'm calling it out for not having, Rutger McGroarty in that group. Jeremiah is asking, any chance Macklin comes back to BU? Probably not. Probably not. It's going to be hard once he goes 1 overall to come back. I think he'd like to come back right now, but I don't think it's possible. Do you guys like Alex Jeffries?
The Islanders signed him.
Yeah, he'll be an okay prospect. Like, do I think he's an NHLer? maybe. He's good, but he never did anything that like had a wow factor in college. So he'll have to really learn how to be a good two-way player if he's going to find his way up into the NHL. He's not overly big or overly strong. So I don't mind signing him and seeing what you have in him, but he's probably a guy who's going to spend a considerable amount of time in Bridgeport, would just be my guess. New York Marine, do you think Colin Graff will score in the NHL? It's a day-old question how guys are going to translate to the NHL. It's hard to ignore what he's doing and the points that he's putting up on a team that's not filled with superstar players. It's not like he's playing with other superstar players, although Lipkin's pretty good, Quillen's pretty good. Do I think he's going to score in the NHL? I would, if you made me say yes or no, I would say no if I had to guess. What do you think? Have you seen much Colin Graff or not really?
I haven't watched a ton of Quinnipiac. I mean, the only teams I really follow closely in college right now is Hockey East. It's the only games I really cover.
That's fair.
So I can't really speak to it confidently. But from what I've heard, like I think people have asked me if Colin Graff's going to come in. Like I know he was rumored to sign with the Rangers. That was like the original team, and if he'd come in and play in the playoffs,
no,
I don't see that happening.
Well,
and can you touch on that too? Because usually the free agents that sign.
As a free agent, you can't play in the playoffs unless if you're a draft pick like Kreider was, and you get put on like a certain list at a certain point of the year, you can play. Charlie McAvoy did it. Kreider did it. But if you're a free agent, he might play 1 or 2 regular season games for the Rangers, but he would not be eligible for playoffs, Colin Graff, FYI. Nyes did it in Toronto last year, but he was a draft pick. So it's different, okay? There's some sort of protected list that you have to be on at a certain point of the year. Let me ask you a UMass question before we go. They sneak into the tournament. They've got Denver, okay? John Butchergross thought that could be an upset game for UMass, okay? I'm not so sure I'm going to go there, although I like UMass. Scott Morrow will have to go to like a medieval player in that game to beat Denver, right? He's capable though, Scott Morrow. But are you more on the Ufko train or the Morrow train?
Oh, it's so tough. I think I don't know if we talked about this on the show.
Ufko is drafted by who? Nashville, 3rd round?
Nashville. Yeah, Nashville.
And Morrow's
Carolina.
Second round pick by Carolina?
I
think Morrow's a stud. I think he's a stud.
I think they're both really strong players in different ways. I think if you are watching a game on eye test, Morrow's probably more noticeable, but I think Ufko always makes the right decisions. It's a difference between like flashiness and just hockey IQ. Not saying that Morrow doesn't have the IQ. Morrow just has that size. He has the skill. He skates like Eichel. It just looks effortless. But Ufko is just so smart. Thinks the game a step ahead.
Who's a better NHL? Who's a better pro prospect though?
Oh man, that's tough.
Really?
I
think your friendship.
No, I'm leaning Morrow.
Okay,
I'm leaning Morrow.
Come on,
Morrow. Yeah, I'm leaning Morrow, especially in Carolina's system too.
Morrow is a stud.
I'm not disagreeing.
Big, he's heavy. He skates.
But when it comes to making mistakes, I would trust Ufko over Morrow.
Okay.
That's all I was trying to say.
You asked for under the radar. If UMass goes on a run this year, it's going to be because of those two. They're 2 of their 3 top leading scorers, on that team. So I think those are good guys to look out for. I think that we'll get a schedule and we'll flash it up on the screen at some point.
Thursday morning,
like Thursday morning with the schedules. I don't know if I'll be able to do the show Thursday morning. I'm still 50-50 on that. We might have to get a replacement for me. I'm traveling to Providence Wednesday night. Thursday morning, we start meeting with coaches and teams pretty early. So we'll see, but we'll get you guys a schedule so you can watch. You can watch the games and you can know what networks they're on. Mostly ESPNU, ESPN News, and ESPN2 over those couple of days. So I guess the last thing I'll address here, Johnny, and then if you want to say anything before we go, Justin Ritzkovian is the guy I want my team to sign. Didn't Ritzkovian already sign? I thought he signed. Didn't he sign with Dallas? I thought Ritzkovian signed with Dallas.
I'd have to check. I don't think I've seen anything on him signing, but I'm sure he probably should have.
Vic, can you look up? You probably won't be able to look this up because his name is spelled way different than it sounds. Justin Ritzkovian. Are you looking it up right now, Johnny?
I got it. Yeah, I got it.
I thought that he signed somewhere because I thought John Goyens and I talked about it.
Yeah,
I thought he
signed
signed
5 days ago. Yeah.
with Dallas, right?
Yeah, Dallas. Yep.
So sorry, Jeremiah, you lost out there on Ritzkovian. I'm not, again, will he become an NHLer? Maybe. He's a really complete player, but does he have any dynamic traits as a forward? I don't really know. Good call, Jeremiah. ESPN Plus also has all the college games. So that, and I think TSN in Canada carries a lot of them, or TSN Plus. So we'll keep that conversation going. Maybe we'll try to get one of the stars from the tournament. Maybe I can see if we can get Macklin Celebrini on Wednesday. I mean, he's so quiet and shy.
Wednesday we got Bobby Ryan coming on.
We got Bobby Ryan, so maybe we'll try to get Macklin. We got Frank tomorrow, Bobby Ryan Wednesday, so maybe we'll try to mix that in. But anyways, I think that's all we got for today. Yeah. Johnny, you want to have the last word, pal?
Yeah, a packed Monday. We got the best time of year, like we said to start the show. It's coming right now. So this week's going to be super busy, like Colby just mentioned. Frank tomorrow, Bobby Ryan Wednesday, NCAA tournament Thursday. Colby's going to be super busy this coming weekend. But thank you to everybody in the chat. I don't really have any final thoughts. 2 big games tonight, though. We mentioned it's going to be St. Louis, Vegas, and LA versus Vancouver. So, the St. Louis Blues, LA Kings, Vegas Golden Knights, all trying to stay in that playoff picture. So fun games to watch, even though they're a little bit on the later side with the Western Conference. But yeah, that's all I really got. Anything with you? Any final thoughts?
Don't forget to like and subscribe the DFO YouTube page. That always helps a lot. Leave us a review on Spotify, Apple Podcasts. Make sure you help us out with those. Those are also really helpful. Good job today, Vic. I know we threw a couple of things at you, and we needed you to be fast on your feet. So good work today with that, Vic. Johnny, I would say
no more cooking.
Good job today. No cooking. Go out to dinner or order food, because definitely don't cook for a girl.
No.
Don't cook for a girl.
I tried that once. That backfired.
Yeah, I don't think that will work out well for you. So good job today. Again, good job, Vic. We appreciate everybody in the chat. Hit Johnny's DMs on Twitter if you want us to talk about anything in particular. As always, we will see everybody tomorrow morning, 9 a.m. Thanks.
What's up, hockey fans? If you enjoyed that video, then you need to be hitting the subscribe button right here at Daily Faceoff. Exclusive interviews and analysis from our hockey insider Frank Saravalli, fantasy updates from Brock Sagan, and a daily live show at noon Eastern Monday through Friday. You don't want to miss any of the fantastic content